Okay, hello. Welcome to Visual FoxPro 2024, installing Visual FoxPro basically on a new developer computer. My name is Rick Schumer. I'm the president of White Light Computing. I'm also a partner at Forward Thinking Software, the makers of CleverFox. I'm a partner at Geek Gatherings, which puts on this conference and our Southwest Fox conference. I'm a retired Microsoft MVP, which is the only time you'll hear Rick Schumer and retired probably in the same sentence. We help administrate the VFPX open source project, build some tools, and I've co-authored a lot of books and some articles. But the most important bullet point on my About Me slides is my email address, which you guys have. And if you have any questions about this session or other sessions with this that I've done in the past, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to converse with you. So today our agenda is really to get Visual FoxPro and all the components and align everything on your machine as most up to date as you could possibly be. We're going to start out where you can purchase Visual FoxPro. We're going to talk about all the updates to the core parts of Visual FoxPro. We're going to install multiple versions of VFP for those who need those, including VFP9 and VFP Advanced. Installing all the latest and greatest updates. How you can then customize the IDE to your liking. Quickly cover up what is known as portable Visual FoxPro on a thumb drive. It talks about some resources. There's going to be a lot of links in this session. Everything is documented in the white paper. Don't feel like you're going to have to take a bunch of notes on it. And hopefully everything's in the white paper that we covered today. So why are we talking about installing Visual FoxPro in 2024? I mean, this product has been out for nearly 30 years. We've all been installing FoxPro from our, back in the days, diskettes and DVDs. And you just push a few buttons, answer a couple questions, put in a key, and boom, you should be done, right? Well, as we move forward in time and you get a new laptop, which we don't do quite as often, at least in my case, I don't do quite as often as I used to. I used to get a new laptop every couple of years. Now I dread getting a new laptop because all the time it takes to install it. So what does it really take? Well, no, most machines today don't come with DVD players. I mean, you can get external ones, but it'd be really nice to be able to install it without DVDs. We're going to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff. And then there's all kinds of things since Microsoft took it over, since Microsoft stopped developing Visual FoxPro, is the community has jumped in and made a whole bunch of changes to core components that are shipped with FoxPro in the box. So we got to talk about that and all the challenges of keeping up to date when links are broken on the internet and so on. Many years ago, I wrote a paper that never got published at a conference. It was actually the base of the session, but I published it on my website mostly for my own knowledge, but also to share with other developers all the places that you can download stuff and put the install Visual FoxPro together. And I really just wanted an up-to-date version of that, and that's why I proposed a session to create a central resource that documents the current state of the installs. So, purchasing licenses. Where can I purchase Visual FoxPro? Well, there are still some people who come in, need to purchase a new license, whether you get a new employee for your team or you want to just get a new license for yourself or whatever. There are only three real places that you can go. Visual Studio subscriptions, which used to be called MSD subscriptions. You have the Microsoft startups, which used to be called BizSpark. And then you have the German FoxPro user group with Rainer Becker. He has North Americans going to Forward Thinking Software. Full disclosure, that's the company that Doug and I have for CleverFox. We have a store there. We sell his bundle. And then anyone else outside of North America goes directly to Rainer to get their license. They have it bundled with their Visual Visual Extend framework. And so let's just take a look where all that can be located. Uh, Hold on just a second. Goes the wrong browser, so I have to do this. Okay. So many people get referred to eBay. Over the years, I've seen lots of posts go to eBay, but I find eBay to be a very sketchy location. I'm not sure if the real licenses, and in fact, scrolling through this, I don't even see Visual Fox Pro available. Haven't seen it really for a long, long time. If you go to Amazon, search Visual Fox Pro 9, you're going to find out it's currently unavailable. So you can go to Reiner's site for Visual Extend. Again, anyone outside of North America can go there, or even North Americans can go there if you want to. If you go to Forward Thinking Software Store, we have the bundle. Again, it's Visual Extend and Visual Fox Pro 9. There are limited numbers of inventory for that. I will tell you that. Visual Studio subscriptions, MSDN. If you go through the website, you eventually get to a spreadsheet, and we go to the spreadsheet and we can look for Fox Pro, and you will find that Fox Pro is available from version 7 all the way to version 9, Service Pack 2. I am not an expert in licensing for Visual Studio, but I can tell you that it's in lots of different versions that they have available. So you have all the, if you get a license to Visual Studio for however much it costs these days, you can get multiple different versions of Visual Fox Pro. Um, Microsoft for Startups is was BizSpark. It is for new companies. I have taken advantage of this with when we started Forward Thinking Software. We had BizSpark. It did have basically the MSDN or Visual Studio subscriptions, and that's just something that you have to find out if you're a startup company. I don't know many startups these days with Visual Fox Pro, but you may have that. For for Visual FoxPro Advanced, 10.0, 32-bit and 64-bit, it's free. Okay, it requires VFP9 to install, so you do have to have a VFP9 license, but it is free. If you want email notifications on the releases, or you want some support, there are subscriptions for the version 10, 10.1, and 10.2. You can see the dollars per year there for US dollars. Chen also sells the C++ compiler for 499 US dollars. And then there's a subscription after 1 year of $50 and additional licenses for $30. Any questions on where you can purchase Visual Fox Pro?
No questions.
No questions. Okay, great. All right, so where do I find everything I need for Visual Fox Pro? If you go to the Microsoft site, uh, the traditional Microsoft Visual Fox Pro 9 site has been moved over to the Learn section of Microsoft.com. Even if you go to that site, you will find that the links for various things like service packs and um, uh, just many of the links on that page are all broken. You'll get 404 errors or the equivalent of a 404 error for the website that it used to go to. So that's a major challenge. It's a big deal to be able to find all this information. Fortunately, the community has stepped forward and has set up the VFP installers project on VFPX. So you can download the VFP9 ISO, which is the install package that you would have on the DVD. You still, of course, need your key, so it's not like you can just install Visual FoxPro from VFPX. It's not free; it's licensed. There's also the Service Pack 2 and Hotfix 3. You have, which is to bring your VFP version up to date. You have the VFP9 security update, which is the ActiveX controls that ship with Visual FoxPro 9. We're talking things like the tree view and the list view and stuff like that. If you need the XML4, which is required for cursor to XML, the XML update class, and so on. There's the MS-XML4 installer, ODBC drivers, and OLEDB provider, which are the original ones that ship from Microsoft and are available for anyone to download. That doesn't require any licensing. You have the merge modules for ODBC, OLEDB, which if you're going to include those in a Windows installer like Install Shield, those are available. The help workshop, if you want to build your help files, your chum files. And then Woody's VFP runtime installers for VFP 9, 8, 7, and 6, all latest service packs. Those are now, they used to be under Woody's website, then they got moved to a MSDN website. That got deprecated, then they got moved here, and they've been around since they were installed. And then the Service Pack 2 bug fix list is also included. So where is that located? That is located on VFPX under the VFPX and VFP installers project. All these projects are individual projects that we're going to be talking about today, but all the installers are all under this one VFPX project. If you want to download anything from VFPX, you click on this code button, this green code button here, and that's going to give you the option to use Git through cloning the Git project using the URL that's right here in the page, or you can just click down on the download zip, and it will package up all the files into the project into one zip file, and then you can go through the unzipping process on your local machine. So if we come down here, you'll see all the details of the VFP 9 ISO, the Service Pack 2, and there's some documentation that you can have that are for your reading pleasure to understand what's installed, and then what you need to download or what's included in the download or the clone repo. The VFP installers, the instructions for that, a very detailed set of documentation, and a basically one-stop shop for all the things that you need to install VFP 9 and a bunch of components that are included with the installs normally. So there, that's pretty much it for the installers. It's really, truly one of my favorite projects on VFPX, just because it gives us everything that we need to get going with VFP9. So now we need to update the rest of the core files for VFP9 that have been updated by the community. Maybe the one of the more important ones, I should say, is the VFP9 help file. If you install the SP2 update, the VFP9 Service Pack 2 update, what we found was that Microsoft completely broke the help file. They removed the favorites tab, the internal links for properties, events, and methods were all taken away. Sample code white space was a mess. Uh, just a complete disaster when they released it. Backstory on that: the community, the names will of the innocent will remain anonymous, uh, just because when you start breaking up a help file and trying to rebuild a help file with intellectual property rights from a company like Microsoft, we don't want to see anyone going to jail, of course. But we'll just say that the community may have come together to, or allegedly came together to disassemble and reassemble the help file and fix it, and may have made an offer to Microsoft to say, would you like to release this fixed help file? Because Microsoft had essentially said, we don't have any resources to do that. Thanks to Alan Greiver, uh, YAG, and most people know YAG. While he was working at Microsoft, he went to legal and did battle and got the help file released under open source for the community. And so now the community has the ability to enhance the help file. And I'll show you the broken one. It's right there. Here's the broken one. My favorite one is one of the first things I do when I'm working with objects is I go to the object, go to the control itself, and then I want to look at the properties, events, and methods. And then I want to look at the anchor property, and I got nothing. And that and the favorites being gone, because I save several important commonly accessed topics that I use under favorites. This was completely unusable. But fortunately, thanks to all the individuals who were involved, we were able to get a help file that's usable and enhanced now with many things, and has room to be enhanced even for stuff like Visual FoxPro Advanced going down the road. GenDBC is a program that generates PRG code that can be used to run and recreate the database container, all the tables, all the connections, all the relations, and so on that are in and contained within the database container. Uh, this is a program that's been shipped with Visual FoxPro, I believe, since the very beginning. GenDBCX was then created, a more improved, enhanced version more than 30 years ago by Microsoft, and then championed by Steve Arnott from the community, with many changes also done by Steve Sawyer, and then even recently changed with bug fixes by Lutz, and incorporating some of the changes that Doug Hennig made for VFP9. So if you install the base CD, you're not going to get these changes. So all the changes I'm talking about are over and above what you would get when you install Visual FoxPro just off the ISO. GenMenu has one change that Kathy Pountney patched that was fixing a bug where it assumes that the first character is a valid hotkey. So that's got an enhancement that Kathy put in. Otherwise, it's pretty static from what it was installed from Microsoft. The Fox Foundation classes, you have the Fox Foundation classes, which are sample code with different functions, features, whatever it is that are in the actual foundation classes. A few changes have been made in those classes and components that are used in other aspects of Visual FoxPro. For instance, there's a change that was made to work with higher DPI displays with the FRX cursor class, and there's a set talk issue with running reports that was fixed. So there's those things that were incorporated into, for instance, the reporting apps that we'll talk about. The upsizing wizard, probably one of the more active projects for a long time. The upsizing wizard was rewritten or significantly changed, I should say, from when VFP9 was rolled out and with Sedna. And there's been a ton of improvements, both by Doug, who runs the project, but also by other contributors from the community who have also found issues or whatever with the upsizing wizard and have incorporated those changes. Just to be a general idea of where these are found. So the upsizing wizard is a VFPX project, and you can do the code download just like I mentioned earlier. And then if you read through, there is just a lot of documentation about what it does, how it's been enhanced, and then of course all the releases going back through the years and all the changes that were incorporated by Doug and all the other members, Mike Podger, Theory from France. So just a lot of people contributing to this particular project. Okay, Xsource. Xsource is the all-encompassing project for things like the class browser, the toolbox, the data explorer, uh, class browser, all the what are collectively known as the X-based tools from your tools menu, and all the source code for that has been available for I think pretty much since the beginning of Visual FoxPro. The problem early on was before we had VFPX or the open source projects for FoxPro was that you couldn't release these based on the licensing agreement of Visual FoxPro. The nice thing now is that with all the open source stuff, Xsource is available, and people have made a lot of changes to the various X-based tools over the years. Um, just jump into all the tools here and show you them in the repos. First of all, there is one encompassing Xsource project. This has been, for the most part, unaltered from what Microsoft released when they released this file. What the administrators did, because updating one full Xsource file is more difficult when you have several different project managers working with the various projects, is that then they would have to update the Xsource file to make the release for their project. What was decided was easier is we've separated all the different Xsource projects out into their own individual projects. Doug did a tremendous amount of work to get that done. And so now we have Xsource individual projects on for each of the Xsource components that are in the base Xsource files. So you may not want to deal with that. I'm just letting you know so there's no confusion going forward with that. What we do have is the individual projects. And I'm not going to talk about all of them because not all of them have changes. What I'm trying to highlight here is the things that you probably will want to look at updating to bring your copy of VFP into the most recent version of everything. So builders, I did a whole session on builders a couple of years ago at Virtual Fox Fest. You can get all the details for that by watching our YouTube channel or going to our YouTube channel and watching the session. The class browser has been updated most recently by Jim Nelson. Jim Nelson added some features with the class browser to, if you're running Thor, it will add classes and class libraries to VFP's most recently used lists as you're opening them up in the class browser. The class browser has its own most recently used list, but now this is adding it into the Visual FoxPro most recently used list and also Thor's most recently used list. He's displaying a version number in the upper right-hand corner. And there's one serious note that you should know about this version is he moved the browser DBF where it looks for the browser DBF. The browser DBF in the class browser holds all your internally the most recently used list for the classes that you're opening up or class libraries you're opening up, as well as any add-ons that you've written or included with for the class browser. Jim moved it to the Home 7 folder, which is a lot better location for it. Makes a lot more sense for it to be there. Uh, but in doing so, he creates a new one, and so uh, any of the metadata that's stored in your browser.dbf in the VFP home folder will not be there. So you need to copy your file over there if you want to retain all the metadata for the class browser on that. Class Browser X is a project that's been around for quite a while, and quite frankly, it's not good that we have two different class browser projects, and I think they can be combined. It's just going to take a little bit of work. Class Browser X, the main changes that were made for Class Browser X is the export, the code export feature of the class browser. And that will, the important part with that is that it just gives you multiple options on how the code's generated. And I think that can be ported over to Jim's code because I think that's going to be a much easier port. But that's something to be done in the future. Code references for those who are using code references. Many years ago, before Jim got involved with GoFish, he was modifying code references to make it faster, better, stronger. He abandoned that project when he moved to GoFish, but it still remains here out on VFPX. And if your preferences are for code references over GoFish, there is an updated version for you. Data Explorer. Data Explorer is something that is something I found a lot of interest in myself. Made many improvements to it. It has been enhanced past the Sedna version that we released or was released with Visual FoxPro. I've added a export import capability that will share some of the add-on code features that you can put in the Data Explorer. I made it so it browses SQL Server data, toggles. You can toggle the doc state for the Data Explorer, and a couple other enhancements. But a number of enhancements if you're using the base Data Explorer that shipped with Sedna or the one that shipped with VFP9. Certainly, go get this version. Reporting apps. Anyone who does reports for VFP9 and is not using something like Foxy Previewer or XFRX, it probably is using the report apps for Report Builder, Report Output, and Report Preview. A number of changes by lots of different people in our community have been incorporated, and it's recently as March of this year. Trying to keep up with all this stuff, I'll be transparent here to say that I was not running the March version. I was not keeping myself compliant or complete up to date until I started preparing the session and doing my research on all the updates to all these uh, VFPX projects. So this is the difficult challenge for us as VFP developers is to keep up on all this stuff. And you can get notifications from GitHub, which I do on a regular basis. And even doing that, I missed one. Lots of important changes, several bug fixes done by some people, enhancements for the DPI monitors, and so on. Very important if you're running VFP9 reports raw without any of the additions or enhancements with other tools, or you're allowing your customers to modify reports, which I just took a support call from this morning. Someone needed to make a change, and they're using the report builder code to make that change within our application. So those kinds of things are really important. The wizards were updated when I did the builders. I didn't improve any of the wizards, but I did modify the wizard app to make it look like the builders app. But most importantly, the reason I did that was because the project builder is a wizard or is retained in the wizard metadata. And so therefore to do that, I had to make the modifications for that as well. All right. With that, that completes the core of Visual FoxPro. So first you install Visual FoxPro, you get all the add-ons from the installers project, and then you go through all the projects, the various projects that I just covered. And now your core Visual FoxPro is the most current Visual FoxPro in 2024 that you can get. Okay. There will be some more suggestions for other things to download, but at this point, we are core complete. Are there any questions up to this point? Any questions? Okay. I will take Doug's silence as no questions yet. All right. Installing.
Sorry,
Oh,
I was muted. Sorry.
okay, no worries. Go
A
ahead.
question just popped up. Is there a good compilable command prompt app that can be compiled into a standalone exe so that a user or developer can type in commands like use customers and browse even without the live development system?
Meaning like a runtime command window?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a session on that. I don't know which year. If you go to our YouTube channel, there is a Visual FoxPro command window. My version is called Fox Command. There's several other runtime command windows that are also uh, discussed in that session as well.
Okay, I think that's it for unanswered questions.
Okay. All right, so installing VFP in 2024, I mean, the simplest way, if you're moving to a new machine and you only have one folder, one copy of Visual FoxPro 9 is literally copying the folder over from one machine to another. You can do that by, using Xcopy or RoboCopy or just cut and paste or Beyond Compare or anything. The 4 folders you really need, though, are your root folder, your home 1 folder, a VFP common files, which has runtime files, reporting apps, and other things that you're going to need for distribution. You have the tool metadata. The various X-based tools have their metadata for the most part stored in the Home 7 folder, which is going to be under your user ID. You have merge modules if you're using Install Shield or one of the other Windows installers and need those. Although many of the merge modules you should be aware of are really outdated because they're from the original version of whatever Microsoft shipped, and a lot of this stuff has changed. And then you can just use the VFP9 exe to /reg server parameter, and that will update or create your registry entries on the new machine and register your file extension so that when you double click on PRG, it opens VFP, or DBF and it opens VFP, and so on. One of the things that I surprise some people with is, how do you find out about these parameters? Well, they're documented in the VFP help file, but you can also run FoxPro with the /? Parameter, and it will bring up a dialog that explains all the other parameters that you can pass the VFP9 exe. And this will give you the option for reg server, which registers the core VFP registry entries. I use this periodically to remind myself of what options I have available, what the documentation is. But one of the reasons I also use the reg server option is if I go through and install, let's just say I have VFP9, but I install Visual FoxPro Advanced, and the default goes to VFP Advanced, and I still want VFP9 as my default FoxPro instance when I double click on things, just running the reg server through VFP9. Or likewise, if you want Advanced, run it through VFP Advanced, and it will migrate your defaults to VFP Advanced. Okay. Then there's some more things you need to worry about. The virtual store, the Windows Virtual Store from Windows Vista all the way through Windows 11. You have anytime you open up, say in the class browser, you open up one of the Fox Foundation classes, you will find that the Fox Foundation classes, whenever you open them, they get moved to the virtual store or copied to the virtual store. A lot of things get copied because they're in a protected program files path. And so you'll be maybe surprised, maybe you won't be surprised, the number of files that get moved into the virtual store. And if you need the files, you need to copy them from your virtual store back to the new machine as well. Um, MSXML 4.0 has to be installed if you're using XML functions or the task pane manager. Task pane manager relies on XML. The Windows registry, you can, might as well just show some of this stuff here. Hold on. The virtual store, bring this over. So here's my virtual store. You can see a lot of the DBFs are for Fox code. That's IntelliSense browsers, class browser. The CHW is, I believe, an index for the help file, and so on. So there's a lot of different files that get copied over. A lot of the Fox Foundation classes, if you open them up again, just opening them up in something like the class browser or Madi class will automatically alter the class library and move it to the virtual store. So just lots of things that you may or may not be aware of, and so be careful with that. Regedit. So regedit, you got Visual FoxPro, and then you have 10 for Visual FoxPro Advanced, the 32-bit versions, and then VFP9. And you can simply just, click on the registry base entry there and come up here and do a file export. It'll create a reg file, which is just a file that you can then import on your new machine. And that will bring over all your settings, all your preferences for things like the debugger fonts and colors and stuff like that. It really is a lot of stuff that is stored in the registry that may be important to you, or maybe you don't want it. You just want to start fresh. If you're using Visual FoxPro Advanced 64-bit version, the 64-bit version is in a it's not in the Visual FoxPro tree. It's in the Visual FoxPro 64 tree instead of Visual FoxPro here. It's Visual FoxPro 64. Okay, and then any tools and components, you may have done a Sedna update, whatever, you might have to bring that over, any VFPX projects and so on, but all that's pretty common. But outside of the core, you can easily get it to the new machine just by copying it over. A lot of people just didn't have access to the ISO until we recently posted it. And so that was much easier to just do it this way. Okay, so multiple versions of VFP9 or even VFP Advanced. If you want to have multiple versions on the same computer, it's very doable. I'm not going to go into gross detail. I did this process. I wrote up this process back in the day when we were getting updates and new versions and service packs from Microsoft. And I wanted to make sure I was running all of them because I have developer tools that have to run, that can run on different versions of VFP9 from my customer base. So if you purchase something like HackCX and you're running it on the release to manufacturing or RTM version of Visual FoxPro 9 and you report an issue and I don't have that version of VFP9, I can't test it to reproduce the issue. And that's why primarily I had multiple versions of VFP9 and still do to this day. So there's a process that's documented in the white paper that you can install the VFP9 build 2412, which is RTM, and then make a copy of that and then install the Service Pack 1 to get 3504, Service Pack 2 to get 5815, and then Service Pack 2 plus plus plus, which is my nomenclature for the Hotfix 3 to bring you up to 7423, which is the latest build of Visual FoxPro 9 with all service packs and hotfixes applied. All the hotfixes are also in that installers project on VFPX, so you don't have to go scouring the internet for to get those. The notes also include VFPA version 10, 10.1, and 10.2. Just to be clear, the notes that I got were from Chen. I want to reach out and show some appreciation for him. I am not an expert on VFP Advanced, but Chen was kind enough to provide me a lot of important documentation was included in our white paper, or my white paper, I should say. So it's basically install, copy files, rename folders, rinse, repeat till you get all the builds that you want. And if you want only Service Pack 2 and then Service Pack 2 with hotfixes, you can figure out what it takes to do that. So on my machine, I have, you can see Visual FoxPro 7, 8, 9, 9 service, no service pack, which is RTM, Service Pack 1, Service Pack 2, and then the regular Visual FoxPro 9 is Service Pack 2 with all the hotfixes installed, and Visual FoxPro Advanced. And then in the Microsoft shared folders, I also keep separate folders for the runtimes and all the components that get deployed to our customers through our installers into different folders so that I also have all those. I don't test with all the versions. I only test with what we release, but I do have all the versions for historical purposes. And then I just create shortcuts. People kid me because they see a bunch of fox heads on my my taskbar, but I have runtime, or not runtime, but shortcuts for each version of Visual FoxPro that I need to be able to run. And I just set up different folders and the executables point to or the shortcut points to the correct executables. Registry considerations. I do want to talk a little bit about registry considerations. I mentioned that you can export, import them, and then I didn't. I already mentioned that Visual FoxPro Advanced 64 is under a different tree, so that's good. Any questions about that?
No questions.
Okay. So, given the challenges of having different versions of Visual FoxPro 9 on my machine, I want to ensure that I am running the components associated with that build, with that service pack, or with that build version. And I had to figure out a way to make sure that when I run Visual FoxPro 9 Service Pack 1, that I'm using the class browser from Service Pack 1 or the IntelliSense from Service Pack 1. And so I had to write some code to do that. And I do that through a startup program. And I'm going to show you this program, well, part of the program. So this is part of my VFP startup program. We're going to talk more about startup programs in a little bit. But what I do is, for most cases, what I'm doing each time it runs is I'm making sure that the system variables that point to the various tools are running the one that's in the home folder for that particular version of VFP9. Okay. And this actually, my startup program is run by VFP8, VFP7, and so on. because I still have some programs that we support with those versions. They're really old and haven't been migrated to VFP9 yet. So the startups are generally pointing to the current home folder or the home 7 folder for that version. But there are occasions, like in the case of the Wizard and Builder apps, I want to run the ones that I downloaded from VFPX. Okay. And so I make sure that in those cases, I define where I have those installed on my machine. Of course, it'll be different on yours. Um, and then I just assign that if the file exists, if the download exists, then I just assign that system variable for Wizard, Builder, Browser, and so on to the proper one. In this case, here's the one that points to the class browser that was downloaded from VFPX, the one that Jim Nelson made changes to. And then a lot of these are you're just going to see are straight things that are just going to the current home folder. And so this runs every time I start VFP, it assigns it so that it's using the correct versions. You'll see some of the cases where as the system variables were added, I want to make sure that if they're not available in prior versions of VFP, that they're undefined, that I don't run them and crash this program. So you'll see some of that. And then you will see other things where I'm using like Fox code, which is the IntelliSense file. In this case, I have one IntelliSense file that I want to use for uh, all the versions because I've updated the IntelliSense file to incorporate a lot of my enhanced IntelliSense scripts. And I want to use those across different versions of Visual FoxPro. And I also want to make sure in the case of Visual FoxPro Advanced, if the version is greater than 9900, meaning VFP Advanced, I want it to use the VFP 9 Home 7 folder so that I don't have to maintain separate IntelliSense files for each of them. And so you can do that for things like the Fox task and so on. Um, it's just something I do. You can keep them separate if you want. I prefer to share them because I don't want to have to maintain scripts in two different locations. Um, Anyways, so yeah, you can see here I'm pointing to the code reference that is from VFPX from Jim. I don't use code reference, but I keep it up to date just for testing purposes. The report builders, and then of course the help file. I want to make sure that I'm using the help file from the version that it came from, and that is just the home folder of where it's located. And then in case of Gen Menu, I'm using a different version of Gen Menu called Gen Menu X. Talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Okay, any questions before I jump into customizing the IDE?
No questions.
All right. Okay, so really the beautiful thing about the IDE is it's super configurable. It's easy to modify. You can modify your instance of Visual FoxPro so that it's working the way you want it to work. You can start out by doing things with Config.FPW. You can include directives and comments in your Config.FPW to do things like set deleted off or set deleted on, stuff like that. However, you want your environment to be set up. There's also an underscore startup and command directive that gives you the ability to run code. The startup will run before the command. So if you have both of them set up, which you can do, you can have the startup runs first. The startup one, you can see in the screenshot here, under file locations, there's a startup program, and you can define that to be any program you want. And the command is just typing in the command in the config.fpw. The system variables are the underscore variables that are included in Visual FoxPro. They're just system variables. You have a whole set of them that are documented. A lot of them, as you saw in the code that I just showed, hold references to some of the various FoxPro tools, and there are other variables that are used for other reasons. But the majority of configuring your IDE is going to be setting up those system variables for the various tools. And then there's the environment manager, which gives you the ability to um, define set values, you know, a lot of the location stuff, your pathing and stuff like that. I'm not a user of the environment manager, but I know a lot of developers who are. It just basically allows you to configure your environment for different projects or for different situations for testing, however you want to configure your environment for. So that's kind of a key thing. Um, my Config.FPW is really super simple. I define a resource file. My Fox user is huge. It has lots of stuff in it. It is maintained with over the years. I have my temp files go to a folder. It's not the Windows temp folder. I want something I can get to that's not very deep in the system and used by a whole bunch of stuff. I just want Visual FoxPro temp files to go there. I have a default folder for starting up my VFP session. I Startup is not, it's got a star in it. That's not a new variable name. That is a commented out line of code, or a directive is basically commented out. In case you didn't know, you can comment out those lines so that they are not impacting your config FPW and the way it starts up. I do the majority of my stuff in the command, my FP start PRG, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then I define gen menu. Gen menu, I'm using gen menu X, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And you can have multiple config FPW files. I just use the same one for almost everything, with the exception of presentations. I have my own presentation config FPW, which hard codes where I want temp files in my default folder and so on, and the startup program that runs when I first start up my session demo instance of Visual FoxPro. Great. Startup programs. Speaking of startup programs, my startup program does a lot. Okay. First, it backs up the Fox user file, the resource file, and the memo file. It backs up my command PRG, which stores all the history in your command window. It does some folder maintenance. It sets my system variables that as you saw in the code I just showed. It sets up an on-error routine for this particular startup program, mostly to protect itself from running VFP9 commands and VFP8 or 7. It sets a default menu, or it saves a default menu. In case it gets whacked during testing, I can reset to the default menu. It initializes Thor and runs updates. It does a check for updates, a Thor check for updates once a week, every 7 days. It does a bunch of set commands that I prefer my preferences to compared to the defaults that Visual FoxPro sets up. I configure my screen to set up some fonts and sizes and all that. I display some details about today. You can see those at the top of the screen there. That's some of them. It reminds me that FoxFest is coming up, Southwest Fox is coming up. Those aren't current. Those are from when I set up the slide. Tool menu additions. I have my own geek menu that I had before Thor was around, but Thor also configures my menu. I run a program called bootlog.exe, which just logs. Every time I start FoxPro, it logs that I started FoxPro and what version of FoxPro. It's something I was doing many, many years ago. In fact, I have history that goes back, I think, maybe as far back as the 90s, of every version of FoxPro that I've been running, includes betas and all that. So I can just have a little bit of, for my own humor, some data about how many times a day I run FoxPro, although it's much less these days because FoxPro is so stable. Update caption. I update the caption to indicate that it's what version of Visual FoxPro I'm running, as well as what service packs are included, just because I run different versions. I customize hotkeys. I restore some macros that I've used over the years. Yes, I still have macros that I used. A lot of people probably don't use macros, but I still have a couple. And then it displays the IntelliSense tip of the day. If you saw my IntelliSense session from a couple years ago, you'll know that one of the hardest things of learning IntelliSense when you build your own IntelliSense scripts is remembering to use them. And so I built this IntelliSense tip of the day to display 3 IntelliSense scripts that I have just to remind myself of the things that I built for myself because I don't always remember everything. You may be questioning why I back up the Fox user. Maybe you are luckier than I am, but every once in a while, the Fox user gets whacked. Either it gets corrupt or mostly just corrupt. Uh, and sometimes it removes entries that are important. Sometimes the debugger goes bonkers, and my debug windows inside the debugger are not the way I intend them to be. And so I back that up once a day, which will be contrary to what you'll see on the next slide. I also back up the command PRG because it does get whacked periodically, and I use the history. Uh, One, because it's easier to just go up a couple lines and hit enter again instead of typing it out. And two, because sometimes I just want to remember what I was doing the day before, and all that history is right there, and it gives me a little bit of context of what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So speaking of the backup Fox user, one of my coworkers who will remain anonymous, you'll see I blurred out their name, um, had a problem with VFP. It crashed on a C5, and then every time they started it, it was crashing with a C5. And I mentioned that maybe try setting resource off or rename your Fox users. That person decided to just delete them altogether, which I thought was crazy because you can always try to restore from backups, but it was one of those things where they restore or delete it and it worked. And so that's one of the reasons I back up my Fox users because every once in a while it goes bonkers. But I try to remain, my person here is remaining anonymous because I didn't want to embarrass them in front of the whole community here at the conference. So what other add-ons? Can you add to modify or customize your IDE? And to be honest with you, there are a ton of add-ons. And so I've selected a few. You may have others. What I'm doing is trying to make sure that the core gets updated and then any of very probably most common add-ons that people are using today. Fox bin to PRG. Might as well just bring all these up in VFPX. So Fox bin to PRG, it's there's several out there. The data, the binary source code to text flattening programs. You got things like 2Fox and SCC text and SCC text X. SCC text is the one that Microsoft shipped out of the box and was used back in the days with Visual SourceSafe. SCC Text X is another version that Woody and others contributed to that extended SCC text. 2Fox is Christoph's tool that does the same thing. Fox bin to PRG is very popular these days in the developers that I work with and in a lot of people that I talk to. And so it's just one of those things. It's a two-way tool. So you can flatten out your binaries and then you can bring your binaries and restore them back into the text files restored back into binary files. And it works really well. Lots of changes over the years. It's maintained its current It works well, and I would say it's very mature now, and that's always a good thing when you're working with stable code. Here's Christoph's FoxMock. We just had a whole session on it, so I'm not really going to talk about it. But if you're doing unit testing, and for all the reasons that Christoph just spoke at length at, take a look at FoxMock, of course. Fox tabs modifies the IDE a lot in the fact that it puts tabs along the top or bottom of the IDE. For every open editor or designer that you open in Visual FoxPro. And it gives you kind of like the same user interface experience as what you would see in like SQL Server Management Studio or Visual Studio. And it's just a way of being able to quickly tab or click on the tabs to get to the various designers and editors that you have open. Works great. And Joel has even made recent improvements a couple years ago. It feels recent to me, though. If you're unit testing, Christoph showed Fox Unit a little bit during his session. Fox Unit is a unit tester manager, basically, and maintains the unit tests and allows you to run the unit tests that you have written for your various projects. It stores the unit tests with the project so that you can have different unit tests for different projects. If you're a single project person, don't have to worry about those things. For those of us who have dozens and dozens and dozens of projects, it's nice to be able to keep the unit tests separate. Eric Selje maintains this. Communities contributed to as well. There's lots of stuff, not just besides the Fox unit itself, but originally built by the Vision Pace folks, a company, a FoxPro company, FoxPro development company, as well as other development company. I'm 100% sure if they're still around, but they contributed Fox Unit to VFPX, and it's maintained there. GenDBC, I mentioned GenDBC earlier. I just want to reiterate that there's GenDBCX, which is a successor to GenDBC. It's not an add-on, it's a complete successor to GenDBC. If you're working with database containers, DBFs, and the like still with your projects, it's kind of a critical component. I use it to document the database container, and also in quick repairs to index files. If I just need to quickly fix one index tag, I'll often just jump into the program it generates, copy out the index code, and run it in a command window that I have. GenMenuX has been around for a long, long time. Andrew McNeil on the GenScreenX days for GenScreenX in 2.6 allowed you to modify screens on the fly using directives in the code. And so GenMenu does the same thing for menus. It gives you the ability to put directives in the menu that tell the menu generator, which is GenMenuX, to generate the menu differently than the standard GenMenu program. It has a lot of cool stuff in it. It's really easy to use. One of the frameworks that I've worked with over the years is Visual Fox Express from Mike and Tony Feltman. It actually generates code that's all class-based. It doesn't look anything like the menu code that you would normally see from menu generation. Anyways, I couldn't find the most current version when I was putting the session together. I reached out to Andrew and said, "Hey, Andrew, can we somehow get this into a repository and maybe even make it a VFPX project?" And Andrew did that like within hours. Really appreciate Andrew. I think you're here today. Kudos to you for getting that done for us. and for the community. It's a big win for everybody. Some more projects. All right, Go Fish. I don't know what more I can say on Go Fish than what's been said at the many sessions and numerous posts on Go Fish over the years. Go Fish was originally created and then taken over by Matt Slay, who unfortunately passed away, but Jim Nelson stepped forward and has modified Go Fish along with Lutz from Germany. And uh, Go Fish is so far past what Matt originally uh, put it to when it became open source, but the uh, the tool itself is remarkable, and it just does a great job. And if you're not using it, please take a look at it. It really enhances your IDE and the ability to go in and search source code and even replace stuff in your source code as you go through it. But anyways, that's Go Fish. Hacker's Guide. Not sure how many people know about this. It's not well advertised as far as I know, but HackFox, uh, originally from Henson Work and written by Tamar Grainer, Ted Roach, Doug Della, contributions with Steve Black. Probably considered one of the most important or at least iconic books in our community and is available as an open source project. The chum file, the help file that is has all the material of the book, can literally be a substitute help file. I actually have it in my IDE as accessible from the IDE so that I can look things up when I'm not completely convinced by the content of the help file, or I want more detail in depth, which is what this book is about, is in-depth usage of different functions, different commands in FoxPro, as well as a lot of different insight that all the authors and tech editors put into this book. It's completely open source right now, and it's available for the whole community to use, whether you own the books or not. IntelliSense X. IntelliSense X is an extension to IntelliSense. It does a lot of different, it enhances the IntelliSense experience. And it's something that you can toggle on and off. It's within the toggling within on and off throughout the use of IntelliSense. Highly recommend taking a look at it. It's available here on VFPX. Object Explorer, another Jim Nelson, Matt Slay creation, gives you the ability to drill into objects and look at all the properties, properties and methods. And it just gives you a different view. You can do it within the development environment, the IDE, or you can do it within your applications. And so if you want to hide a feature in your applications that allows you to go in and jump into the um, objects and see what's going on internally, what settings are causing the problem that maybe your users are referring to, you can do that through the Object Explorer. PEM Editor, another project that evolved from Marsha Akins and Jim Nelson just took off with it. Replaces all the native dialogues in VFP for adding, editing, and maintaining properties, events, and methods. I can't remember the last time I saw one of the native dialogues. It's been that long. It's used by a lot of people and really makes things easier when setting up classes in adding properties and events. Doug Hennig has the Project Explorer. If you haven't seen the Project Explorer, there on our YouTube channel, there's a session by Doug for the Project Explorer. I would watch it. The Project Explorer replaces the project manager, the native project manager in VFP, It doesn't have to replace it completely. You can still access the project manager, but you can access your project from the project explorer, as well as you can enhance the project explorer with your own add-ons. And there's plenty of examples on how to do that. Doug covers the project explorer in that in that session. I'm not going to go into gross detail about it, but a lot of people use this. It's a nice enhancement to the IDE. And then finally, we have, I mentioned earlier, the alternate SCC text. This is the SCC text X. If you do a search for SCC text X on VFPX, it's really called the alternate SCC text project. Again, it's just an enhancement to SCC text. If you're using that one that shipped with Microsoft, consider using this one. It's much improved, lots of changes to it over the years. Stonefield Database Toolkit. If you don't know, Doug's formerly commercial product for Stonefield Database Toolkit, or SDT, is available if you're using DBFs. This is like a critical component. I don't do DBF projects without it, and it's open source. It's not a VFPX project. It's one under Doug's repos. The Thor Tool Manager. We've covered Thor ad nauseum at the conferences, but make sure just know that it's an important IDE enhancement if you're not using it. The Thor repository is a bunch of community contributions that run through Thor. Thor being the tool manager, the Thor repository is a bunch of tools, programs, and components and tools that can enhance the IDE and the experience working with code and classes and tools and whatnot. And then another one that might be not well advertised is system variables. Martina has documented all the way from VFP5 all the way through Visual FoxPro Advanced, all the system variables that Visual FoxPro has to offer. And I found this, I think, purely by accident one day when I was doing a Google search, and it turned out to be kind of helpful to me in the not short term after I found it. All right. Any questions on IDE add-ons?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Miscellaneous. Portable Visual FoxPro. What is Portable Visual FoxPro? Is this a new version of Visual FoxPro that all of a sudden now runs in a different way? No. Basically, it's putting Visual FoxPro onto a thumb drive. Very similarly to how I mentioned you could copy files from one machine to another, you can copy Visual FoxPro onto a thumb drive. And if you're visiting a customer, and this is a real use case scenario that I did myself, running Visual FoxPro from a thumb drive because they didn't have a copy of Visual FoxPro, and it worked great. There are some issues with XML because you might not have XML4 installed or ActiveX controls that you need for class browser, toolbox, component gallery, those kinds of things, but it works remarkably good and can be very helpful when you're on site with the customer. Resources for this session. The VFPX installers is a huge, huge resource. I can't say enough about this project and the effort that people put into that. Very important project. How to install VFP9 in a modern world is another resource very similar to the white paper for this session. I think I cover a few more things that I wanted to talk about. Woody covers a few things that were important to his blog entry. Very good, good reading. I posted a blog many years ago about Windows Server 2016 and installing the IDE on Windows Server 2016. There's also the unofficial VFP9 SP2 bug list on the wiki, which I left it here just in case the Visual FoxPro wiki comes back, which is something I hope for almost every day, especially during conference preparations season. If Stephen hears this, I'm begging you, please. All right. Special thanks to Pamela Thacker Mary Plant, Mark Grainer, and Kathy Pountney, who uh, edited the white paper that I posted many, many years ago, um, and incorporated into this white paper. I can't say enough about the edits that they provided. If there's mistakes in the white paper that you see, it's not the cause of any of those four. They did a remarkable job trying to keep me in line. So, summarizing, where can you purchase Visual FoxPro? You should know that by now. Where can you get the updates? That should have been explained. All the installing multiple versions is in the white paper. Installing the latest and greatest updates and customizing the IDE were covered in great length, hopefully. We briefly talked about portable Visual FoxPro and the resources. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come listen to my session. I really appreciate any feedback that you have, both constructive and kudos if you found something useful. I'm not sure how many people are going to find something new, but if you got one nugget out of this session, I find that to be good enough for myself when I'm watching somebody else. My email's on the slide there. It's in the white paper. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and the rest of the conference.